Holosmith. It looks incredibly cool, but did it deliver? Let's find out. Engineer is my exclusive main since release, so I was very excited for Holo during first look. Now after playing it, not everything is that awesome as we all wished, but it's still very solid and pretty polished. I wanna talk about mechanics, skills, synergies, builds, what I like and what I don't. Keep in mind, it's my personal opinion based only on limited experience, so if you disagree, don't hesitate and leave a comment. The concept of Holosmith as a sort of crazy high-risk, high-reward DPS spec is something I really like, and it's very funny and fluid to play. The point is that engineers haven't a shortage of good damage builds. We have a solid place in current DPS meta, and what we needed and what we asked for since release are some party buffs, basically like any other class. Yes, we recently got pinpoint distribution, but it's barely enough and Holosmith delivers literally zero party support. On other hand, I see other synergies and possibilities for all kinds of new builds. From pure DPS, both power and condi, through elixir hybrids as well as very defensive ones. Holosmith got a brand new mechanic called Heat, together with an ability to engage Photon Forge. When you activate Forge mode, you will start slowly generate heat and your weapon skills will change into different, very powerful abilities that generate additional heat when used. Heat have multiple thresholds that will amplify your abilities once you cross them. More heat you accumulate, more powerful they will be. But if you stay in the Forge mode for too long and reach max threshold, you will overheat. That deals massive self-damage and Photon Forge will be disabled until you fully cool off. The whole mechanic is about staying below max threshold, but don't cool off too much so your abilities stay buffed. While you're losing heat and it's not from overheating, you will get a buff called Heat Therapy. After a short delay, it regenerates health for each heat point you lose. Also, your character will change color based on threshold. But if you have a small Asura, it's hardly noticeable and bar really blends in bright maps, so it needs a way better visual indication. Forge abilities are independent of your weapon and you are not forced to use a newly added sword. Unfortunately, main hand sword is only weapon what benefits from heat. It's a bit shame, especially if you consider how much more effort got Weaver with all its new skills. Another thing what I don't like is a Forge cooldown. While you can enter Forge without any restrictions, you have to wait 6 seconds before you can leave it. Because of that is the heat management a bit unintuitive. I get it, it's there to prevent static discharge spam, but simply swapping this cooldown to entering instead of leaving would fix it all. The heat management and its mechanics have 3 quite distinct types of gameplay determined by Grandmaster traits. Vent Exhaust allows your dodge to release some heat or damage and burn enemies. It has some nice synergies with recently changed traits in core lines what increases your damage without full endurance and spawn mines on dodge. In my opinion, amount of released heat is bit too small, but it's not big deal and it can lead to some builds focused on endurance regen. Enhanced Capacity Storage Unit or ECSU increase your hit capacity from 100 to 150. And add a second amplifying threshold to some skills which make them even more powerful. While you are above 100 heat, you will also stack 2 might each second. It would be so great if party could have that might as well. Photonic Blasting Module or PBM alters mechanics quite a lot. You no longer lose heat while outside of Forge except when you overheat. That means you can generate heat over the threshold, leave Forge and keep all abilities amplified forever. Also, minor Grandmaster trait Laser's Edge that increases damage by 15% while in Forge mode will work outside of Forge as well. And if you overheat, instead of self-damage you will explode with massive AoE and heat therapy start without delay. Minor traits allow you to tweak Forge functionality even further. Light Density Amplifier increases passive heat generation but decreases incoming damage by 15%. With ECSU, if you don't use any Forge skill, you can have this up straight for the 50 seconds. With minus 50% damage from Spectrum Shield, 10% from Frost Aura and 33% from Protection, it's a lot of damage mitigation. Prismatic Converter is literally god tier Condi counter. Each time you turn off Forge, one stack of Condis will be converted into the boons. Over 50 hit 2 stacks and over 100 3 stacks. Every 6 seconds. This has some nice defensive synergies with Alchemy, since Transmute will convert another stack every 15 seconds. Together with Alchemical Tinctures, AGH and Elixir Gun, it can bring back some elixir-based builds. Solar Focusing Lens will add burning for next 2 attacks after you leave Forge, or 5 attacks if you overheat. There can be interesting rotations with PBM, like turn off just before overheat, fire 2 skills, turn back on, overheat, explode and fire another 5. Turning on Photon Forge will grant you 5 new, very powerful skills. Each one will generate additional heat. Autoattack contains 3 skills in melee chain. They all do just very high base damage. The DPS is around 30% higher than Bomb 1. It can be upgraded with trait Crystal Configuration Storm. Instead of melee, it will throw exploding discs up to 600 range. The damage will remain same, which makes it probably the hardest hitting range auto attack in the game. Hollow Leap is a 600 range, high damage AoE with Leap Finisher what also stacks swiftness, and all of that only with 2-second cooldown. It can be upgraded with trait Crystal Configuration Zephyr. Instead of swiftness, it will grant 3 seconds of super speed and each use will remove cripple, chill and immobilize. It's an incredibly strong mobility skill and Condi counter, especially together with Prismatic Converter. Corona Burst is quite high damage AoE what applies loads of vulnerability with a 6-second cooldown. After first explosion, it charges up and releases another about 3 seconds later, while you can use another skills. It also stacks 10 might. Unfortunately again only on you. It can be upgraded with trait Crystal Configuration Eclipse. Corona will also grant stability and barrier for each target it hits. Photon Blitz is basically Thief's Unload with a 10-second cooldown. It pierces and stacks burning. Unfortunately, burning is super short and skills stack too much heat to be viable in PvE DPS rotations. On another hand, it will be great for quick bursts in PvP. Holographic Shockwave is an incredibly potent AoE launch. 600 radius is massive and 15-second cooldown makes it very reliable CC across all game modes. On top of that, it deals decent damage and always with critical hit. As I said before, a newly added sword is the only weapon what benefits from heat. It's a little bit shame that it's only 3 main hand skills. It would be way cooler if we could dual wield it, or even amazing if heat would affect other weapons as well. Sword auto attack chain is pretty basic, deals damage and stacks vulnerability. Base damage is quite low, but over 50 hit is critical chance increased by 25% and over 100 hit by 50%. It can be interesting in builds with offensive stats without precision. What is really cool is that third attack in chain decreases recharge time of other sword skills by 3 seconds. Refraction Cutter deals damage in short range and shoots out damaging projectile what also applies bleeding. Above 50 hit shoot 2 and above 100 4 additional projectiles would stack even more bleeding. Since auto attack can reduce its 9-second cooldown, it can be quite a potent way how to stack bleeding. Radiant Arc is a short leap with decent AoE damage would cripple enemy and grant quickness based on heat. With some boon duration and reduced recharge from auto attack, you can easily reach permanent quickness. Skills 2 and 3 deserve swap its position, so leap would be consistent on both sword and forge. Gulen Blast, the new heal skill, is pretty solid. While it won't replace turret in glass cannon builds, I see potential in solo defensive ones. The main heal amount is on par with turret and gives regen. Over 50 hit also grants Cooling Vapor, which is basically another regen, and Frost Aura what reduces incoming damage by 10%. Toolbell Cauterize cleans its conditions, more over 50 hit. but self-burn is very unpleasant and makes this skill quite disappointing. Laser Disc summons rotating blades what moves and damaging with you. It has 30-second cooldown and lasts for 6 or over 50 hit for 9 seconds. Damage is semi-decent considering you can cast other skills while it's active. It also stacks bleeding with each hit, but in my opinion its duration is too short to be viable for Condi builds. Tool Belt Blade Burst fires up to 5 projectiles, 1 per target. Deals 25% more damage over 50 hit. 30-second cooldown is way too long, it should be at least cut by half. Hardlight Arena summons big buffing AoE for 8 seconds or even bigger for 12 seconds over 50 hit. Cooldown is 45 seconds. When I saw it for the first time I was like, finally some reliable team support. But no, it's massive ground buffing area what works only on you. Honestly, this was the biggest disappointment of this entire spec for me. The arena itself grants fury, protection and regen each second. Cooldown is maybe a little bit too high, but with 100% boon duration it's almost permanent uptime. I will definitely use it in my upcoming open world PvE farming build. Tool Belt Prismatic Singularity is a fantastic AoE pull and damage with just 26-second cooldown. Above 50 hit is radius even bigger. Reliable AoE pull like this was something engineers always miss, so I'm really happy for this. Spectrum Shield is one of the best stun breakers in the game. It has 30-second cooldown, but over 50 hit is reduced down to 15 seconds. It also grants a defensive buff for 3 seconds, what decreases incoming power and Condi damage for 50%. Tool Belt Flash Spark is an AoE 3-second blind, what applied light aura over 50 hit for 4 seconds. In my opinion is a 34-second cooldown inconsistent with 30 seconds on Spectrum Shield, and 3-second blind is bit too short. Daze instead of blind would make it much more interesting. Photon Warlock blocks incoming projectiles in a rather small cone in front of you for 3 seconds with 35-second cooldown. While active you can use skill for a second time and release wall forward. Over 50 hit, it reflects projectiles and releases 3 walls instead of 1. Overall it feels very clunky and underwhelming. Cooldown is too long, block too short and damage from walls isn't high enough. Tool Belt Particle Accelerator shoots crippling projectiles what grants you swiftness and can pierce through 5 targets in a row. The projectile is faster above 50 hit. With 8-second cooldown it has some potential for static discharge builds. Prime Light Beam, our new elite skill, is great. It deals massive damage, launches everything it hits, it's unblockable and only on 60-second cooldown. Over 50 hit it also spawns field for 10 seconds what deals damage and applies burning. It will probably replace mortar in new DPS builds. All new forge and utility skills are also available underwater and work exactly the same, which is a nice touch. So my final impression, on the first glance Holosmith looked like one-trick pony, but after many hours of studying it I definitely think that devs made a lot of great work here. It's not perfect and I don't agree with some design decisions, but overall it's the best what engineers got so far, and I like it. That's all I had for today, so if you enjoyed, don't forget to subscribe or leave a comment and stay tuned for next time.